Oh, what was that? Happy Hump Day, folks. It's Wednesday. I'm glad to be with you. It's February 25th. What was that? Uh, it's been a week. It's been a heck of a week. And I found myself saying, what was that, a couple of times. And I just want to, a big what was that State of the Union address last night. And I I was watching with my wife, and this is on the backdrop of interacting with some other people in the last week that have different thoughts than we have about happenings, with things that are going on. And it was really, really weird. I mean, earlier in the week, I had someone ask me for a series of favors. And while I was doing that series of favors, while I was pleasantly executing on that series of favors, they decided to approach me about my ideas on political happenings and wanted to ask me how I could possibly be okay with that and why my morality was so far gone. Again, while they were asking me for favors. And I thought it was really odd. I'm like, you're over here asking me for favors and questioning my morality at the same time. This is a weird transaction. But in the midst of their questioning me, they said, "Well, what? How come you believe this? How come you know?" I said, "Hold on. You you can actually look back. Hindsight being 2020. Hindsight being 2020. You're sitting at my table, and you honestly believe that Tim Walz, the guy that is imploding Minnesota, the guy that just said he's not going to run for politics anymore, the guy that wanted to be our vice president, but has shown that he has not run Minnesota well at all. They're talking about $30 billion being fraudulently taken from that state. And they're further showing that he knew about it. And they actually stopped it once, but in fear of being called racist, reenacted the fraud. You can't even. And I said, you're saying Trump is so bad. Trump is so bad that you you sit at my table now and say that I am morally bankrupt because I wouldn't prefer to have somebody like Kamala and Tim Walz in charge of the country. I think people keep forgetting the choices that we had. We had we had Kamala that had horribly floundered as a vice president, and Tim Walz, who I thought was crazy. And they're saying, and people are still mad. They're still mad now. They're still angry now. And so that conversation happened. And then the whole thing with the morality thing, someone else was in the room and said, "Well, but how do you feel about abortion?" And instantly, "Well, it's my body, my choice, my this, my." I said, "It's not your body. It's different DNA. It's someone else. There's another person in there." You know, what's the justification for that murder? And I mean, we were having a conversation about morality, folks. So bear with me on this. And I thought to myself, how can I have a reasonable conversation about the morality on how illegal aliens are being treated when you're willing to kill a human being in your body? It's a weird conversation to have. It's so abstractly not normal. It's not these conversations that we and I said I miss the days. I miss the days where I could be friends. And I told them, I said, I go down to the tap room and I'll have a beer with people that I know have different opinions than me, and we get along fine. I speak at the Chamber of Commerce, and I know there's people in the room that don't agree with everything I say, but we still get along. I don't know why you're in my house asking me for favors and we're having a conversation where we can't get along. That's bizarre to me. I didn't grow up this way. I didn't grow up knowing what my neighbors thought or how they voted or what my parents even thought and how they voted. I mean, we just grew up. We were a community. We interacted together. We helped each other, regardless of what their political beliefs were. If there was an old lady next door, I shoveled her sidewalk when it snowed. I don't understand where we're at nowadays, where everything's got to be preempted by, do you believe in my body, my choice? Would you save the baby if it were dying? Would you do you think that's an illegal alien, or do you think that's a somebody that didn't break the law that's here with broken laws. It's such a weird conversation to have. And I don't know why we have to keep having it. I'm not much better. I'm doing it right now again. But that leads me to last night. There we are watching the State of the Union. And things are being said, right? We've accomplished this. We've accomplished this. We've accomplished this. This was a disaster and it's all your fault. And nobody is on that side is standing up and applauding for anything. Everyone on this side is going crazy for everything that's being said. And there's obviously a little bit of tension in that room. But the one that struck me the most, um, there were a couple of things that struck me during the State of the Union address. One was the empty seats. Obviously, people they make good money. They make good money to be in those positions. They can sit in a dang chair for a couple hours. They didn't show up. They protested. They went out and had their own events to conflict with the State of the Union. If I'm voting for somebody and they don't show up to do the job, but obviously I'm expected to go to my job, right? Um, I'm not voting for him again. I'll tell you that. And regardless of my beliefs, it's like you're choosing not to do the job. That's a bizarre thing. That's a bizarre thing to me. We're honoring people for not doing what's expected. And by expected, I mean, you got to do it. So, he asked, you know, I need you to stand and show your support if you believe in protecting American citizens over illegal aliens. He didn't say immigrants. He didn't say foreign people on visas. He didn't say people that take a legal path to come to the United States. By the way, I'm all for immigration. I'm all for immigration. I'm not for illegal immigration. Um, I tried to move the family to Italy. They wouldn't have us. I thought about moving to Canada. Guess what? Canada didn't want us either. Canada didn't want someone with my professional expertise coming to their country and taking a job from a Canadian to do what they thought a Canadian should be able to do. Simple. Simple. We looked at moving to Canada. It didn't work. We looked at moving to Italy. It didn't work. I stayed here. I made things work. Do I get to visit Italy? Yes. Do I get to visit Canada? Yes. But I don't get to move there. See, and that's interesting to me. If I can't go to any of these places with the full intention of being productive, right? Being productive, working, earning a living, and contributing to the community, the same as I do here in the States, they're not going to take me. They're not going to take me. So why are we expected to open up our doors unconditionally and let anybody in, whether they're going to produce or not produce? The strangest thing to me when I had that conversation in my house while I was being questioned for my morality was I said, they were saying like all these stats that didn't make sense, things that didn't make sense, things that Trump is doing, the people that are dying, I said, well, show me where's this happening? Because I'm not hearing about these dead babies on the sidewalks. Like I'm just not, this isn't coming to my feed. So show me where this is at. Oh, well, you need to research, you need to know. And I said, okay. And I said, well, what about the illegal aliens that are on all this assistance that we pay for? That doesn't happen. That's impossible. I said, all right, well, let's just ask AI real quick. So I asked AI, well, I don't believe that. Well, I don't believe that. And I don't believe, hold on. Is there a news source that you do believe? Not for nothing. Most of these AI companies are run by people either in the there a center anymore, but mostly left leaning. That was the biggest complaint when Gemini came out. Gemini came out and they said, show me a picture of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And there wasn't a white man in the room. So these platforms have a reputation for being left leaning. And so I asked AI, I said, let's just ask AI. They're left leaning platforms. I said, how many illegal aliens in Minnesota are on support? How many illegal aliens in California are on support? And I said, right of the fact, 52%, 38%, 19% of this. And she goes, oh, I don't believe it. That's not true. It can't happen. What do you mean it can't happen? I'm showing you right here. You have to look at something besides whatever this is that you're consuming that's polluting your brain, you have to look at some other sources. You have to consider some other sources. I don't just listen to right-leaning things. I look at all kinds of information that comes my way, and I find it very, very interesting. So here we are, we're having these conversations, and for some reason, we're having them all the time in our lives, which never happened before in history, as far as I know. So we're going through all this angst, and then we see the State of the Union, and live on TV, right there. Hey, do you think it's the priority to protect the American people over illegal aliens? Not a single Democrat stood up. I'm I'm baffled. I'm absolutely baffled because Trump didn't say immigrants. He didn't say people on legal visas. He didn't say black, brown, yellow, German, Syrian. He didn't label anything. He didn't even say Islam or Muslim or any of that. He said, is it more important? Is it a higher priority to protect American citizens than illegal aliens? And not a single Democrat stood up. And when they talked about the girl that got killed on the bus and her mom was there, and they didn't even stand up for that girl. It's like, what mind virus is like, what happened? That's what came to my mind. What happened? What gets a person to think that way? That our own citizens are worthless and not worth a consideration, but should pay and suffer whatever the energy, whatever it is, to support people that aren't even supposed to be here. That is like, it's the most logically flawed thing that I still can't wrap my head around. And I have friends on that side of the aisle. I have friends on the left side. I can't reconcile with them on how that makes any sense at all. Now, I will admit, Trump asking that question the way he did, he was kind of cornering them. If they didn't stand up, they were going to look like idiots. And apparently, they all made a pact to not support Trump in anything that he said. Now, that Trump derangement syndrome that they expressed right there was crazy. That was lunacy on display. Absolute lunacy on display. And when Trump calls out, as he should, billions of dollars from one cultural group taking all that money out of our country and sending it back to their own country. When he called that out, keep in mind, nobody has said the fraud didn't happen. Everyone's saying the fraud happened. However, people on the left are saying we should let it go. Worse, some of them think we should keep it going. I can't wrap my head around that. I can't understand how we could say those people are stealing, we have to stop that. And they go, well, you shouldn't be watching those people steal. You should be watching other people. Just let them go. They should be allowed to do that. That doesn't make any sense. That is mind-bogglingly crazy. And it's not racist to say, hey, elements from that culture group, elements from that region, this is a behavior that people from that region exhibit. We should be careful about how we allow this to integrate into our existing culture, into our existing society. That's not racist. That's being real. There are people that look like me that live around the globe that have different cultural origins, different cultural thoughts. And I don't necessarily want those thoughts and things interfering with the way we live here, with our lifestyles. When you immigrate somewhere, you're supposed to adjust yourself. You're supposed to, appropriate a little bit of culture. And instead, what we're doing is we're saying, no, celebrate your differences and be as contrarian as you want. And we shouldn't say a word to you. In fact, we should adjust to appease you and the culture that you're trying to bring into our existing culture, to eliminate our existing culture. It's a very strange conversation. Now, hey, what happened? Sunday, my neighbor died. I'm having a real problem with that. I've mentioned it before, and I'm saying it again. Maybe that's a little bit why I'm a bubble off, right? Neighbor died on Sunday. Pardon me. Oh, see, uh, I'm allergic to even saying it. His celebration of life is Friday. Looking forward to that, seeing family and just trying to love on some folks. So that's good. It's affected me in a big way. I mean, it really has. But still, we have to figure out through all these distractions, through the distractions of what we saw during the State of the Union, through the distractions of death in the neighborhood, through the distractions of the things we see in the news, we still have to forge our way forward. And I've been really pleased this week. My peer-to-peer kind of mentoring call on Monday, I think, went really well. That was a good time. Good stuff there. We released a couple of podcasts this week for the Mañana No Mas show. Both those podcasts went really, really well. Got some extraordinary feedback from the Agency Action show that I do at Toby Crines. So really, really enjoying the motion, the momentum there. And then next, the training that we're doing with the Marine Retailers Association is really shaping up nicely. One group has finished their third session, 3 out of 7, and another group just today finished their fifth session, 5 out of 7. And here we go. In just one example, let me share this with you. This is why I think this kind of training is so important. I do it for power sports. I do it for the marine industry as well. Just one thing that we shared, right? This is session 5 today, 5 out of 7. The guy says, well, here, we filled the form out that you asked us to. So we wanted to find a process to improve. We had this process and service that wasn't working well. We did this root cause analysis that you asked us to do. We implemented this, easy change, right? And here is our result. Folks, that result was a 45% increase in productivity in the service department. To put that into terms that make sense. So I want to say this in the right way. Thinking of the numbers, they went from one percentage of productivity to another percentage of productivity, and it was about 20%. And then we take that 20% and we lay that over their starting percentage, and we say, well, that's a 45% increase in productivity. So what that basically means is that if they had the financial opportunity to maybe do $1 million in business before in labor, the way that they were doing business, right? The way they were working currently, they could have done $1 million a year in labor, right? They made this slight little change through training, and now they're going to do $1.4 million in labor. 1.4 million, $400,000 extra for the year because of the training, because of the focus, and because taking that moment, right? Taking that's why corporate training is so valuable. We're not rewriting history. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just creating focus on certain elements of business. And when you take the time and you focus on a certain element of business, when you're able to focus on it and you're able to make a small change, you can take that change and extrapolate that over time and go, what's the gain on that? What's the gain? And in this particular instance, that gain is about 45% in increased labor sales. Now, will that actually happen over time? Will that sustain itself year over year? Will we be able to see a 45% increase in labor sales? That's yet to be seen. Yet to be seen. But the cool part of this, the cool part of the process is you go, I see it now. I see it. I can label it. I can change it. And I can take action, right? That action. And then I can evaluate that action. As I evaluate that action, did I go up? Did I go down? Can I tweak it more? Could I optimize those results, right? But it's because you take a moment to focus on something and make an effective change. Folks, that to me is over the top. As crazy as things are right now, we see the news, right, left, center. I don't care where you're at. You see the news. You go, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. You either hate ICE or you love ICE. You either think the protesters are crazy or you think the protesters are completely justified. They should be doing more, right? Whatever your position is, through all of that chaos and mayhem, we all have businesses to run. We all have jobs to do. We all have revenue to create. And I think I go back to what I said during the pandemic. We need to focus on the opportunities within the obstacles so that we can optimize our chances of getting ahead. And this training that I'm doing with the Marine Retailers Association, I love it because when we have a session like today and someone says, oh, yeah, my service department's up 45%. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's crazy to see within 5 weeks of training. What's this going to look like for them in 3 months, right? What's it going to look like in 180 days? That's really cool stuff. So with that, I think I'm going to close out because that's a really strong way to close. Where I'm going with this is we got to keep things in perspective. Things are crazy. People are behaving like they're nuts. I'm pretty sure if I had my say, I'd say big pharma is probably at the root for most of it. A lot of these people are on antidepressants. They're on all kinds of weird cocktails that doctors prescribe, and their behavior is nuts. Okay? And there's extremes on both sides. Somehow, in the chaos, we got to figure out how we're going to find a winning path. And what's interesting is I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think there's a ton of opportunity out there. I interact with a lot of entrepreneur and startup groups, and I can see the energy, the flavor, the people want to get something launched. They want to keep going. There is hope. There is desire. And so a lot of what we're seeing in our feeds is contrarian to what's really happening. And we need to focus our attention on what's really happening. Be positive, be supportive, regardless of someone's affiliations. Be willing to give them a hand up, help them find a way forward and launch their business and create revenue. That's what we do here at Mañana No Mas, and I'm hoping we can do it for you too. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.